Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today? You're a little crooked. There we go. How are you all doing today? I hope you've had a wonderful weekend, or if you're watching this in the future, a wonderful day whenever it is. I'm trying to put more consideration into the YouTube side of things these days. You may have heard me say I want to do some ASMR videos on there, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But yeah, regardless, I hope you're having a wonderful now, whenever now is for you. Today we're going to read a story that I read some years ago, and well, I didn't read it. I listened to a narration of it, but I really enjoyed it, and I've been wanting to read it again since, I don't know, it's been a while. I've been wanting to reread it, so I'm glad to finally have an excuse to today. It's called The Forest of a Thousand Legs. And yes, it does have to do with spiders. So, oh, did my music stop? Oh, I didn't have it set to loop. There we go. That's better. We need some spooky ambient music to set the mood for everything. But yeah, it does have spiders in it. So if you're an arachnophobe and that's gonna, cause issues for you, might not be the right day to watch this stream, but of course I enjoy you staying if you are interested. No worries if it's too much for you though. You're never obligated. Well, shall we get started? And normally I read my stories from the Creepypasta wiki, but this one wasn't on there, so I had to go back to Reddit on the NoSleep subreddit. So that's where I'm reading it today. Let's put you back over in your proper spot. Alright. So, let's begin. The Forest of a Thousand Legs by Lovzinski. Little Lucy Lockhart ran from her daddy's frying pan. The forest of a thousand legs killed her and then laid their eggs. That's a jump rope rhyme my classmates used to sing on the playground in elementary school. It's really fucked up that they sang that because, well, Lucy Lockhart was a real person we attended school with. She vanished when we were in second grade, so we must have been around 7 years old. The rhyme was loosely based in truth, in that the official story was that Lucy Lockhart did in fact vanish into the Lockhart wood 50 yards from her father Robert's house. But he wasn't chasing after her brandishing a frying pan to beat her with. I was too young at the time to understand what was happening, and it wasn't much later that my mom actually explained it to me. It wasn't a particularly shocking story, just sad. Hi, Brayden. It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Sorry I didn't get to talk earlier. I was running a little late trying to get everything set up. I was actually I was actually kind of napping most of the afternoon. I got really tired while I was hanging out with Drambeak. And so then I was just like, okay, I need to take a bit of a nap here. But it was nice. It was very restful. So I'm glad I did. And now I'm ready to tell a story. I'm gonna take a quick drink. It's fine, no worries. To be honest, been trying to keep it together today. Hope you had a good cat nap. I did. I hope you're not stressing too much. Is it about the avatar stuff? All right. There we go. Nice and hydrated. Now get you back over there. I remember the day Lucy went missing. At least the first day she didn't come to school. It was Monday. She went missing the Friday before. My mother told me it was a few days before Lucy's 7th birthday, and that Lucy had asked her father if she could have a birthday party at her house. I remembered that. Lucy and I had been in the same group of friends, and I remembered her telling us that she was going to ask her dad about having a birthday sleepover. I especially remember being annoyed that she wanted it to be a sleepover because I was the only boy in the group and was never allowed to sleep over with them. I was still excited at the prospect of a party, though, as we all were, because we knew her father, Robert Lockhart Jr., was a retired entomologist. We just called him the Bug Man. And had lots of pretty preserved specimens like butterflies, beetles, and cases that Lucy would sometimes bring in for show and tell. Anyway, according to my mother, Lucy asked her father if she could have a sleepover for her birthday, and he said no because he was going to spend her birthday at her mother's house while their house was being fumigated. It was a normal enough reason for a 6-year-old to cry and storm out of the house, but running into the Lockhart wood was a bad idea for any person of any age without the proper equipment. Brayden, yeah, you're done with it, but you miss her so much. Guess you'll elaborate later. Yeah, for sure. No need. You don't need to air it out here. We can do that in private. But I'm sorry you're feeling stressed about that. Or not stressed per se, but I'm sorry you're missing her so much. Here's the thing about the Lockhart Wood. Some people call it the Forest of 1,000 Legs, presumably to make it sound creepier than it already is. It doesn't need help. There are roughly 4,000 species of spider in America, and the Lockhart Wood is a phenomenon on its own in that it's home to all of them. Not only that, but there are documented populations of some spiders previously thought endemic only to certain countries, such as the Goliath bird eater, a couple of funnel web spiders, and some species of peacock spiders. There's that myth that says you're never more than 3 feet from a spider at any given moment. In this forest, it's not a myth. It's filled to the brim with spiders. I think at this point it goes without saying that if you're arachnophobic, the story is not for you. The forest is naturally of great interest to biologists and arachnologists, but Lockhart Wood is private property, and restricted guided access to the forest was hard to come by even before Lucy Lockhart's disappearance. Afterwards, nobody could go in. Obviously, anyone could get into the forest if they wanted to. It's not fenced off or anything. But there's a steep fine if you're caught trespassing, and nobody's exactly clamoring to delve into a forest full of venomous spiders anyway. You need the right kind of boots, clothes, gloves, first aid kits and knowledge of the forest to step past the tree line. The most common spiders at the edges of the forest are jumping spiders, various wandering spiders, and orb weavers. Most people who emerge from the forest have a number of banana spiders clinging to their hair and jackets, startled by the destruction of their webs. If visitors are allowed deeper into the forest, the spiders get bigger, and they lurk on the ground. Hi Nate, how are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Kind of sleepy today. I mean, I feel like I've been saying that a lot more recently. But yeah, I was kind of sleepy today. I took a nap for a couple hours before hopping on to stream today, but it's been good. I've been having a good day. I hope you have been having a good Sunday yourself. And also, I haven't given y'all a hug yet today. There. Now we can continue with the story. Let's push you back. According to my mother, Robert Lockhart Jr. lived with his father in that house for a long time. They were a father-son duo of entomologists from Alabama. But Robert Lockhart Sr. had a focus on arachnology. He had bought the house and the forest specifically for its spider population, which also made it super affordable, and he usually worked from home. Robert Lockhart Jr. did a lot of work at a university 3 towns over. He married a professor there who taught evolutionary biology, and the 3 of them lived in the elder Robert Lockhart's house until Robert Sr.'s sudden passing during a study on tarantula hawks. Lucy Lockhart was born a year later, and Robert Jr. was able to retire from teaching and live as a stay-at-home dad, while Lucy's mother continued teaching at the university. He still worked collecting and preserving specimens, mostly butterflies and moths, and had reports published in the entomology scene, and very, very rarely led guided tours around parts of the Lockhart Wood for a price. Nate, you're doing well. Still slightly scarred from the first 20 minutes of researching for Rachel's project, but after the recommendations we used those, and she's done a 25 slide thing with all of what you, oh my gosh, did she have fun with it? I hope she found some things interesting and, kind of got into it. My mother only got to know Robert Jr. once Lucy and I became friends. She said he didn't talk about the forest very much. She got the feeling that he was afraid of it. When he and his wife divorced, my mom suspected part of their irreconcilable differences was Lockhart Wood. She never really pried into it. After all, she and Robert Jr. only spent time together because Lucy and I spent time together. Although I remember hoping they would get married so that Lucy and I could be brother and sister. Robert Jr. hated the forest he owned and made sure that nobody who stepped foot in it was dressed, or made sure that anybody who stepped foot in it was dressed and prepared for the occasion, which is part of the reason why my mother never believed he killed Lucy when he was the prime suspect in the investigation. When Lucy ran off into Lockhart Wood that evening, my mom said, Robert Jr. gave chase without hesitation, in socks, sweatpants, and a t-shirt. He must have received a dozen bites of varying severity the second he went in. Oh my gosh, Nate, she's been geeking over the Mahabharata to her friends. It is, okay. So the Mahabharata is so interesting. It's such like a huge epic too. like they've got like a whole big text that's just a single conversation before the start of a battle. But yeah, it is fascinating lore. And if she's interested, there is actually like a very long live action, I don't know if you'd call it a mini series, but I guess a mini series that does have a few inaccuracies, but it's mostly very accurate. I'll try to remember to link it to the information. I don't know where it's watchable. I actually have this set on VHS. But yeah, I don't know where you can find it, but I'll post some information to it because it really is a phenomenal watch if you're into that sort of stuff. He was in there for 4 hours. My mom was working a night shift at the hospital when he was brought in, delirious and swollen all over. There was no telling how many bites he'd received, and to this day, my mother doesn't know how he survived. He needed antivenom that no hospitals in the United States could offer. And when he dragged himself back home after desperately searching for Lucy in the forest, he could only self-administer so much. Maybe luck and a developed resistance was what saved him. He lost both legs below the knee, but he lived. From what my mom could gather in the weeks following Lucy's disappearance, the investigation was chaotic. Search teams entered the forest, but they never spanned it at all. 2 forests on the initial search team were bitten by what was most likely a Sydney funnelweb spider, and unfortunately both died. After all, the Sydney funnelweb is otherwise found only in Australia. We don't have that antivenom at the ready here in the States. Anyway, the search of the forest lasted maybe a week before branching off elsewhere. My mom says they couldn't, maybe wouldn't, search the whole forest. More than one officer who searched Lockhart Wood left the force and subsequently skipped town. Those who didn't leave might as well have. They don't get out much anymore. My mom doesn't want to know what they saw in there. Nate, you'll have it be a small treat for her after school. She's got an earth science exam Wednesday. Ooh, nice. I hope she does well on it. Lucy never turned up. It didn't take long for suspicion to fall on her father before he was even discharged from the hospital. My mom says that there was a point where he was handcuffed to his hospital bed, even though both his legs had been amputated. For a while, she couldn't tell if he was totally lucid because he would spend hours sobbing. That forest's got her. Those spiders got my baby girl. But there was no evidence to convict him of kidnapping or murder. My mom and the parents of Lucy's other friends and mine were involved in the trial as witnesses, and they all insisted that they never had any reason to believe Robert Jr. was abusive towards Lucy, or that he would be driven to hurt her. Just a sec, I'm going to turn the music down just a smidge. There we go. I don't think it was too loud for you guys, really, but I think it was a little loud in my ear. Actually, Maybe it's too quiet now. Let me know if it's too quiet and I'll turn it back up a bit. But anyway, let's continue. I didn't know any of this at the time, as my mom responsibly sheltered me from the details of Lucy's disappearance. But obviously, some other kids we went to school with got wind of some information, hence the morbid jump rope rhyme. It upset me a lot when I heard kids chanting it during recess. I was young, and I missed Lucy very much. It's been 11 years since Lucy went missing. It doesn't really upset me anymore. It's just a sad mystery that I still think about sometimes. The group of friends that Lucy and I shared stayed close until middle school, and then we all branched out a bit. I don't think any of us ever forgot about Lucy. I recently graduated high school, and the original group of us got together at a diner to discuss in amazement how we were all finally done with high school forever. At one point, I nudged my omelet around my plate, saying absently, "It's been years, but I still wish... Man, I wish Lucy could have graduated with us, you know?" My friend Stella leaned her shoulder into mine and knocked our mortar boards together with an understanding smile. "It's the same here, bud, but she'd be proud of us for doing it." The conversation drifted elsewhere, but that poignant thought of Lucy stuck with me for a long while after that evening. It wasn't until the day before I went off for my freshman year at college that I told my mom I wanted to stop by the Lockhart house and sort of say goodbye to Lucy, if Robert Jr. would let me. "Well," she shrugged over breakfast, "I guess it couldn't hurt. You don't get over losing a child, but all things considered, he seems to be okay. He might oblige you." So later that afternoon, I drove across town toward that dark, looming forest that stretched into the sky on the horizon. I hadn't been to Lockhart House in over a decade, but the sight of it instantly made me happy. I no longer mourned Lucy, I only cherished the brief time we knew each other as children, and I had lots of fond memories in that house. As I pulled into the gravel driveway, I saw the curtains in one of the front windows shift, so I knew someone was home. He might not want to let me in, but there was no harm in trying. I went up to the front porch and found a wooden hanging of a Luna moth adorning the front door. It had no sign of grime or weathering, and the pale green paint still had its glossy finish, so I guess it was fairly new. I don't know what I expected from Robert Jr. Maybe that he was too far gone after the loss of Lucy that he wouldn't bother decorating anything. But it had been more than 10 years, and recovery is possible. I knocked, and he answered a few moments later, frowning curiously at me from the gap in the door. "Hey, Mr. Lockhart, I floundered a little stupidly because I hadn't planned on how I was going to talk to him. I'm Aaron Levizinski. You know, my mom, Jane, at the hospital." The door eased open a bit more, his face relaxing with recognition. "Jane's boy. Yes. You were one of Lucy's little friends, weren't you? Come in, wipe your feet." "I'm surprised you remember we were friends," I admitted, stepping inside and wiping my feet on the floor mat. It looked like a monarch butterfly. "I remember all you kids," Robert Jr. said with a wave of his hand, leading me inside. His prosthetics clicked on the linoleum. "It was Lucy, you, Stella. Oh, there was 2 little girls named Hannah, wasn't there? You were the one that cried a lot 'cause you never got to stay for sleepovers." "Yes, sir, that was me," I said, embarrassed. "You gay, son?" It was a startlingly straightforward question tossed over his shoulder as I followed him into the house. There wasn't anything accusatory in the tone, though, so I said yes. He grunted. "Knew you'd be fine to sleep over with the girls. Could have spared you a lot of whining and crying." He took me past numerous framed bug specimens as we made our way to his living room. It was a big room cluttered with bookshelves and workbenches and paper strewn about. Dozens of terrariums of various sizes dotted the room and lined the walls like trophy cabinets, the only gap where the den opened into the kitchen. A bright desk lamp illuminated the whole room, and the light bounced off a magnifying visor headset and a laptop screen. It looked like he had been dissecting a large beetle before I knocked on the door. It was good to see that his passion for bugs hadn't been destroyed after losing his daughter to the Lockhart wood. "So, what brings you here, Scooter?" he asked, going into the kitchen to retrieve something from the fridge. "Well, we graduated in May and I'm leaving for school tomorrow," I explained. "And I just I still think about Lucy a lot. So I was wondering if you had kept any of her things over the years that I could see and sort of, remember her by. If you're okay with that, sir." Robert Jr. came back over to me with a shrug and 2 beers. He said, "Ain't much a little girl has to her name but Hello Kitty bed sheets and Beanie Babies." Oh man, Beanie Babies. I couldn't help but grin at the memory. That was always my go-to gift. I gave her a bunch of mine. "What, you want 'em back or something?" Off my startled look of chagrin, he chuckled and handed me the second beer. "I'm messing with you, boy. Her room's this way." He led me down a long, familiar hallway, down which Lucy and our friends and I sprinted recklessly over a decade ago. I recognized a few framed insect specimens that we had knocked from the walls in our roughhousing fits. We went into Lucy's room at the end of the hall, and it was virtually unchanged from how I remembered it. The walls were still pale pink and decorated with pastel-colored cross-stitch artwork made by Lucy's late grandmother. The canopy bed was neatly made, the Hello Kitty bedding crisp and unfaded from years of disuse. The shelves upon shelves of stuffed animals, with an army of Beanie Babies gifted by me populating their own shelf. And, surprisingly, a long terrarium against the wall with an enormous black spider sitting motionless under a black light. I recognized that spider. "No way, that's not..." Robert Jr. flipped on the lights, which turned off the terrarium's backlight. The massive spider retreated into a hide with a twitch of its long, slender legs. He grunted. "That's her." Lady Legs was a type of huntsman that Robert Lockhart Sr. had discovered in the Lockhart wood and kept for 10 years before Lucy was born. There were plenty of live specimens in the Lockhart house over the years, but Lady Legs was the only one that Lucy seemed to cherish as a pet. Robert Jr. had said that in the past, some tarantulas can live up to be 25 years old, but Lady Legs wasn't a tarantula, and if this was the same Lady Legs from that time, that would make her over 30 years old. Do huntsman spiders live that long? I asked incredulously, moving to the terrarium with a fascination I hadn't felt in years. Robert Jr. stood in the doorway with his arms crossed and an expression of distaste creasing his features as he looked at Lady.
None that I know of, besides that one.
She's even bigger than I remember, I murmured, my breath fogging up the glass as I tried to peer into the spider's hide at an angle, but I couldn't see her. I'm gonna take a quick hydrate break before we continue the next paragraph. What do you guys think so far? I hope you're enjoying this story. Hasn't really gotten into very much action or anything yet, but I hope it's intrigued you at the very least. All right, we are nice and hydrated and ready to go. Oh, hi Lurid, it's good to see you again. You like it, slowly building to the climax? Absolutely. I definitely like a slow burn, but it's at least got to be engaging and give us hints along the way to keep us going. Nate, you enjoy the detail of the entomology? Before you wanted to bake, you wanted to be an entomologist. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Were there any particular bugs that you liked more than others? All right, where were we? There we are.
Far as I can tell, her size depends on her enclosure, said Robert Jr. She won't get no bigger as long as she's in that tank.
I saw Lady's leg move in the hide, then turned my head to look out Lucy's bedroom window. It faced the deep gray-green mass of Lockhart wood. I stood, absently tracing my fingers through the condensation on the bottle in my hand. Lady came from the forest, didn't she? How big do they get in there? Robert Jr. didn't respond. I looked over at him. He was downing nearly his entire beer. He finished with an angry-sounding hiss and said finally,
Ungodly big. Anyway, take your time in here. Do what you want. Look at what you want. I'll be down the hall.
Okay, thanks. As he started to leave, I remembered the drink in my hand and held it out to him awkwardly. Oh, hey, I'm not 21.
Ain't nobody gonna snitch on ya.
He left the room and I hissed open the beer. Nate, you were a huge fan of dragonflies, manatees, and butterflies. Now you're more into beetles and centipedes. Interesting. I love all those bugs. They're so interesting, but yeah, they freak me out in person. Very fascinating critters, though. All right. I don't know how long I spent in there, meandering around fondly. Maybe an hour. I took a spider beanie baby off the shelf and held it as I looked around. I stood over the dresser looking at the framed pictures on top of it. Most were of Lucy and her parents. A few of Lucy from toddlerhood to age 7, holding the gargantuan lady legs in her comparatively tiny hands. I was in a couple of pictures too. Group pictures of us and our other friends at birthday parties, our messy little faces smeared with cake. I found an old elementary school binder from the first grade class Lucy and I had together, where the first activity of every day was to make an entry in our journals, following a simple prompt given by the teacher, and then draw a picture to go with it. Naturally, lots of Lucy's entries were about Hello Kitty, playdates with me and our friends, and bugs. Some of them made me laugh, like her outrageously mangled spelling of the word centaur in several entries about herself and Lady Legs as Spider Lady centaurs. After a while, I just stood at Lucy's window, looking out at the Lockhart Wood as I finished my beer. I'm a lightweight when it comes to alcohol, so I was pretty buzzed. The Forest of 1,000 Legs had never looked so eerie. The angle of the late afternoon sun didn't penetrate the darkened woods, but it glistened on countless spiderwebs suspended along the tree line, emphasizing how dark the forest was beyond that. It was strangely inviting in a predatory way, like the lure of an anglerfish, how it had swallowed Lucy up. Movement outside the window caught my eye. I looked over and saw Robert Jr. standing under the carport facing the forest, downing another beer, a backpack hanging from his shoulder. He was dressed in different clothes from the flannel shirt and cutoffs he'd been wearing when he let me inside. He was wearing a heavy jacket and hat, with a different set of prosthetics that had shoes. He looked like he was dressed for going into the forest. I left Lucy's room, crossed to the other end of the house, and through the screen door off the kitchen. Robert Jr. didn't respond to the wooden rattle of the door banging shut. "You're going in?" It wasn't a question. I was incredulous. "Ain't been in there since I lost Lucy," Robert Jr. said pensively. "Think it's about time I go back in one last time, before I torch it." The sun was hidden behind Lockhart Wood, but not quite set, casting the house and us in shadows, and before I could stop myself, I asked, "Can I go with you?" To this day, I'm not sure why I wanted to go with him. Maybe for a sense of adventure, of danger that 18-year-olds are attracted to and think they can survive anything. Maybe I had some stupid notion that we'd find Lucy in there, dead or alive. Maybe I just didn't want a guy who had lost his daughter the last time he was in those woods to go in for the first time since then alone. "Nate, you still let those big crawlers climb onto you when you're in the woods, if they are safe?" "Yeah, I would if I wasn't freaked out about them. I've tried to get better over the years, though." "It's dangerous in there," said Robert Jr. It wasn't a no. "I'd be with you," I said, dumb and optimistic. But in my defense, he let me go with him. Neither of us mentioned it, but I know he didn't want to go into the woods alone either. "You'll need to be dressed right," was all he said. And the next thing I knew, he was jamming a hat on my head, layering me in protective clothing a size too big, and cramming my hands and feet into gloves and boots a size too small. "Not a perfect fit, but close enough," he said, tucking my baggy pant legs into my boots. I had zipped the jacket most of the way, but he yanked the zipper all the way up to my chin.
It was my gear back when I was a little older than you. When my daddy bought this place.
He strapped a headlamp to my hat, did the same for himself, and shrugged on the backpack that he had filled with a first aid kit and a cold pack for anti-venom. I watched him put it all together, fascinated as I nursed another beer. It was hard to believe he hadn't ventured into the forest in more than 10 years. The speed and certainty with which he prepared everything was like that of someone who explored Lockhart Wood daily. That anime fangirl, hello, welcome to our humble little fireside chat. Well, not chat so much, just story time. I'm glad to see you here. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I hope you're enjoying the story so far. He gave me a set of strict, reasonable rules, basically telling me not to leave his side and not to thrash around if I walked into a web, and to always watch my step, even though I was wearing boots. I could change my mind at any time in the forest, so if I wanted to leave, he would guide me out of the forest. I sent a quick lie of a text to my mom telling her that Robert Jr. had invited me to stay for dinner, and then zipped my phone into a breast pocket. By now, twilight was fading. The purple sky soon turned to an inky blue, and we set off. The trail leading into the forest was rough and overgrown from years of seeing no foot traffic, but not completely hidden. The first thing I did when I entered the forest was walk right into a web that Robert Jr. had subtly avoided. I started to flail instinctively, but Robert Jr. caught me with an arm across my chest, saying, "Don't thrash," I said. After he assured me the web didn't belong to anything venomous, I carefully picked the web off from my face and hair, following him deeper into the wood. It was darker than I anticipated beneath the trees. There were a few spots of visible death in the trees, suffocated and deprived of sunlight under thick layers of web wrapped around them. But most of the forest looked healthy, supporting the spider population symbiotically. Robert Jr. and I switched on our headlamps pretty quickly when the scant moonlight didn't light our way sufficiently. Hi V, it's good to see you. I hope you've had a good weekend and you're having a good Sunday. We're just reading a little story about a forest full of spiders. Very cozy bedtime story. And I am going to take another hydrate real quick. All right, that's better. Yay, spiders, perfect fall asleep too. Absolutely. At least most spiders are good for us, though. Well, I mean, I don't know about most, but they help keep the nasty bugs away. All right. I looked down at the ground, casting a wide circle of light at my feet, and immediately froze in place, my skin crawling horribly. Spiders the size of $50 were scurrying away from my boots in droves. Not quite a swarm, but enough to be uncomfortable.
"You're all right, son. Those ones ain't gonna hurt you,"
Robert Jr. hadn't looked back at me, but he must have heard me freeze behind him.
You want me to take you back?
Pride swelled higher than the fear in my chest, so I said, "No, I'm fine." One of the spiders crawled slowly over my boot, its long legs probing curiously at my laces. I wrenched my eyes away from the ground, shook the spider off violently, and pushed forward. I've never been particularly arachnophobic, but it was impossible not to feel itchy all over, imagining hundreds upon hundreds of unseen spiders creeping into my protective clothing, slipping down the collar of my shirt and edging along my scalp into my hair. The tiny spiders became less of a presence, however, when we came to a fork in the trail, and Robert Jr. dropped to a sudden crouch, grabbing my sleeve and yanking me down with him. "Ooh, hi, Derpy. It's good to see you. Totally forgot today was Sunday. I was wondering where you were, Derpy. I just figured you were, busy or something. Let me catch up a little on chat. But it's good to see you. I hope you've been having a good day." V had a good time. Yep. Hope everyone did as well. Yeah, I was a little sleepy today, so I was taking a nap before I got up to get ready for stream. It was very nice though. It's been a relaxing day, and I love this story. I haven't read it in years, so I'm really excited to be telling it to you guys. Stretch? Alright, let's do a stretch, Derpy. Let's get you guys over there. Alright. We will do a little one. Oh, yep, there's the poppin'. And if you all have been sitting for too long also, make sure that you're getting up and moving around a bit too. It's so easy for us to just live those highly sedentary lives, especially with how, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at balancing, especially with how so many of us end up in office work. Makes it really hard to get all the exercise we need. That was a really good stretch. Thank you, Derpy. Nate, hey, y'all building an audience now? Is this a creepypasta about Robert Downey Jr.? No. This is a creepypasta about a forest full of spiders. And up until this point, it's mostly just been, setting the scene, getting us introduced to the characters. But the basic gist of it is that we are heading in. Oh, what was that? The basic gist is that we're heading into a forest that the main character's childhood friend disappeared in 11 years ago. And this forest is the one that's absolutely full of spiders. Every spider you can think of is in this forest. And so that's where we find ourselves. The main character heading in with the disappeared girl's father. So let's continue. Boop.
Look at this, he whispered,
his headlamp fixed on a spider not 2 feet away from us.
This here's a nasty one.
A spider the size of my hand stood strangely before us with 2 sets of thick, hairy legs thrown in the air. It might have looked silly if not for the vivid, violently red jaws on display, pulsing angrily in our direction. Worse still, the spider continued to move, swaying gently, with its rosy, chelicerae. I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry. Throbbing almost obscenely, inching infinitesimally closer with its side-to-side motions. Wide-eyed, I whispered back, "What is it?" Infuriated at the sound of my voice, the spider lunged closer. This time I could see its fangs protruding from the red, quivering with rage and glinting with wetness.
"Brazilian wandering spider," said Robert Jr. softly. "P. fera, it looks like. But it can be hard to say without a closer look. Only live in South America. Except for this place. You know."
He unzipped 2 pockets and withdrew a large pair of gloves to slip over the ones he was already wearing.
"They might be the deadliest in the world."
Instinctively, I shrank back, but then took hold of Robert Jr.'s jacket sleeve with popping eyes when I saw him reach toward the spider. "Don't!" The spider struck at his 2 fingers with lightning speed, and a force that made a sharp snapping sound pierced the dark woods around us. In the blink of an eye, it struck twice. A red-brown blur. Horrified, I tugged frantically at Robert Jr.'s sleeve.
"Relax," he said,
pulling his hand back and showing me his intact glove.
"Hoss can't quite bite through these."
The spider darted out of our joined headlamp beams and off the trail into the woods. Robert Jr. removed his bulky second pair of gloves and stowed them away.
"Can't do much delicate handling with gloves like that, but anything else and those fangs'll go right through."
He stood suddenly, leaving me crouched and trembling, clenching and unclenching my fists, unpleasantly aware of how thin my gloves were now. I stood slowly. My headlamp slid up the trees in front of me, where the bark seemed to shiver and shift with the traffic of smaller spiders oozing up and down the trunks. I turned my head to see where Robert Jr. was looking, and my light fell on his back several meters away as he moved down the left path in the fork. "Derpy, you hope there's a mini civilization of jumping spiders with tiny hats?" "You know, I think that's probably likely, Derpy." "Hi, Donzi. Good to see you. I hope you're having a good weekend." "We're just reading about spiders today." "Wait," I squeaked as I rushed after him. I stumbled over tree roots and ran haltingly, skidding awkwardly to step around more than one fat, lumbering tarantula as I made my way back to Robert Jr.'s elbow. Our headlamps bobbed in the darkness, and my gaze was drawn farther up where the lamp's beams lit up a vast labyrinthian webs high overhead, where nothing on the ground could destroy them. Glinting white gold in our light, they shuddered in an imperceptible breeze.
"Those webs are way better high up there."
"Those webs are way better high up there," I said with a breathless chuckle, trying to shake off the anxiety from the Brazilian wandering spider. "We won't walk into any down here." Robert Jr. walked briskly, barely acknowledging me with a grunt, while I looked all around me, casting my headlamp's light to and fro. Robert Jr. hardly moved his head, focused steadily on the twisting path down which he led us. Occasionally, he would stop so abruptly that I would collide with his back, and he would gaze up into the ever-thickening treetops at the spiderwebs overhead, which were now so large and thick that massive sections of leaves had been suffocated and died. I could see clusters of spiders creeping every which way in the stuff, while more obscured movement shifted on the other side of the web, so thick that I couldn't see what it was. My depth perception was off in this environment, what with the distance between myself and the webs and the number of different sizes of spiders I could see. Everything looked bigger up there from where I was standing. Derpy, just giving Elden Ring another try. I need to play that someday, but I don't know when I'll ever get around to it. Donzi, could never get your head into that. It definitely does require a certain mindset. You don't just casually go into any of those Soulsborne type games.
Communal webs,
said Robert Jr., pointing at the massive net of silk.
Most spiders live alone, but some are social. Bunch of different spiders taking care of the same babies, sharing the same food.
They must catch a lot of prey, I said, moving my headlamp over the vast web. It's huge.
Wouldn't be surprised if they make a regular meal of birds,
Robert Jr. speculated.
Squirrels too, maybe, if any wander in this far.
I looked at him, bathing his stubble-shadowed face in yellow light, and said slowly, That's kind of big for a spider, isn't it?
Bee Blondie in South America has been known to eat birds,
Robert Jr. said.
It's the biggest spider in the world, at least outside of this godforsaken forest. This place ain't like the rest of the world.
He paused, a muscle jumping in his jaw, then said,
But they don't make webs. They live in burrows. So watch your step.
You love the world building of it. I mean, Miyazaki's it's Miyazaki, right? His world building is phenomenal in all his games. Too hard though. That's the big barrier for a lot of people. For me, I was able to kind of get myself into Souls games more when I started treating it less like just a hack and slash and more like a puzzle game. Like once you find the patterns and you figure out how the best way to kill a certain enemy is, it becomes really easy and almost it's fun to try and figure those things out sometimes. Donzi, you mostly got it because you're a lore nut and the Elden Ring lore had you interested, but you're just not great at crawler fighting games, like Souls games. That's very fair. More into roguelikes yourself, Nate, when you've been playing it? I don't know what Rabbit Hole is. I'll have to check it out. I resisted the urge to clamp onto his arm like a child as I swept my headlamp over the edges of our path. Spiders littered the forest floor, scurrying busily, but the irregularly spaced holes along the path and nestled between tree roots were what made me nervous now. The biggest hole looked like it could swallow my leg. We continued to walk, uninterrupted by webs for the most part, but there were a few low-built ones that I would walk into when I was staring off into the woods, and Robert Jr. wouldn't tell me to duck. Unnerved as I was starting to get used to the sensation, hardly jerking back when the sticky, feather-like strings snuck up on me. My pulse would still spike when it happened, though, pounding loudly in my ears as I carefully brushed the webs from my face. But then Robert Jr. took us down a second fork in the path. When I distractedly collided with two webs of surprising density in a row, I finally focused on Robert Jr. ahead of me to complain about not warning me, and a tangle of silk lit up in my headlamp centimeters away, just in time for my face to crash into it. Even though it was my fault for not watching where I was going, I said testily, "Come on, Mr. Lockhart, at least give me a heads up," as I dragged my gloved hands down my face, raking the web from my skin. Robert Jr. said nothing. I looked up over his shoulder, and in front of me I saw why. The trail ahead was entirely choked in web, a glistening haze like morning fog stretching farther ahead. Shapes twitched within it, different from the shifting masses of hundreds of smaller spiders in the first communal webs we saw. These were heavy and singular, with sharp angles plucking at individual lines of silk. I couldn't quite make sense of what I was seeing. Something crunched under my foot. I looked down at the wispy, stringy gray floor. Brittle old bones of some animal I couldn't identify lay there. Among the bones lay the aged, empty remains of a huge tarantula. Skeleton and exoskeleton locked together in death. Had they fought and died tangled with one another? Rowdy, say talk to really slow. I'm not sure what you're trying to say, Rowdy. Welcome to the chat, though. I'm gonna grab myself a hydrate real quick. That's better. All right, let's continue. Jesus, I said loudly, just as Robert Jr. breathed softly. Jesus. He wasn't looking down, he was looking directly up. I looked up too and froze. Our headlamps joined and lit up the webs that swallowed the understory, washing over the enormous spiders that moved within them. Things the size of fish bowls, with fat round abdomens and twitching, creeping legs thick as pool cues. Clusters of eyes reflected light back at us, and the movement of their heavy bodies made meaty, organic clicking noises. These things weren't what Robert Jr. had commented on. The creature slowly descending from the web by a thread was. At first, I thought it was a spider with a squirrel or a rat or something in its jaws, but a small logical corner of my mind reminded me that that's not how spiders eat. Not even tarantulas who don't wrap their prey in silk. The rodent appeared bisected, as I couldn't see its back legs, with ugly gray skin visible around its midsection like it had mange. Its back half was impossibly the swollen bulb of a spider. It looked like some gruesome mockery of a centaur. The limp torso of some parasitic rodent bursting forth from an unwitting host. There was no way that this thing could be real, or if it was, it couldn't be alive. But the thing's spinnerets kept pumping a hardy silk line, two spindly back legs touching at delicate tips as it worked its way down, and the rodent's head twitched, its furry front legs extending, paws grasping. I saw its face, a squirrel with too many beaded black eyes extending up from the front of its head, blinking gummily down at us. I could see its long yellow teeth as its mouth lolled open. Derpy. Sorry, but after you made that joke earlier, you kept picturing Iron Man walking through this spider forest. Oh my gosh. Well, at least he would be protected with all that armor. I was distantly aware of my body moving, weakly grasping Robert Jr.'s jacket sleeve and yanking on it. His voice sounded very far away as he muttered, "What the fuck?" Movement in the corner of my eye somehow managed to pull my attention from the abomination above us. My eyes were drawn to the edge of the trail on which we stood, and for a moment I thought the ground had dipped down an embankment and we were simply elevated on the path. But I soon saw that it was a massive hole in the ground, a burrow. I continued to tug mechanically on Robert Jr.'s arm. Aw, hi buddy, thank you for following. I really appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying the story. Or if you just got here, I hope you stay a while and you do enjoy this story. Either way, it's wonderful to see you. Nate, he'd likely get bit in his left arm. Iron Man, is that what you're talking about, Nate? Astral's deep voice caught you off guard. Yeah, I'm honestly better at doing the deep voices, I think, but I don't like to do them as often for obvious reasons. But sometimes they just fit. You just gotta do them. All right, let's. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna actually take another hydrate, and then I will send you all back to your positions. Yeah, Iron Man. Is that a lore thing with the left arm? I'm not super knowledgeable on Iron Man. I've seen, some of the Marvel movies, but that's about it. All right, get back over there. We got a story to continue. Boop. All right. What the fuck? A face peered out of the burrow, ghostly pale against the darkness within, and seemed to drift up and out closer to us. It was a human face with too many eyes clustered across the bridge of its nose, glittering black and blinking slowly. Head pats for chat? We'll get it in just a sec, Brayden. It ducked its head, long dark hair hanging in its lank tangles, as a woman's bare moon white torso emerged slowly from the hole in the ground, a hulking, hairy mass of a spider's abdomen the size of a Volkswagen Beetle followed, connected at her waist. Her 8-branch thick legs crunched in the leaf litter, audibly thumping with the weight. Robert Jr. and I staggered backwards, upsetting more spiderwebs in the underbrush. The creature's legs were striped with white at their joints, and I thought of Lady Legs back at Robert Jr.'s house. And what he said about her species' size in the wild, ungodly big. Robert Jr.'s thoughts were also back in his daughter's room because his hand gripped my arm in return. I heard him say, "Lucy." My eyes flew back to the creature's face, its unnatural addition of eyes surrounding the originals, and as it tilted its head, I recognized her too. Her mouth dropped open, lower lip dripping with something too viscous to be saliva, and her rail-thin arms spasmed once before lifting up, sending a painful jolt of electric fear up my spine. Her white, long-fingered hands took hold of the squirrel spider dangling between the two of us and herself, The thing squeaked and convulsed, its legs thrashing horribly, and Lucy brought it to her mouth. I ran. I thrashed my way blindly through web after web, back the way we came. I heard Robert Jr. call my name, unexpectedly close behind me, and suddenly felt him crash into my back. I hit the ground hard, face first. I barely had time to register the bright starburst of pain as my nose broke and began to bleed, or the scattering of spiders millimeters in front of my eyes before Robert Jr. yanked me bodily back up and whirled me around. I thought he was slapping me, but I realized he was swiping away spiders that I'd picked up as passengers from the ground.
"Don't you run off in here, boy,"
Robert Jr. hissed in my face, shaking me hard.
"Something else will kill you before."
The enormous creature loomed behind him, creeping down the trail after us. I started to yell, but Robert Jr. clapped his hand over my mouth, spinning to face her. He forced us into a sort of half-crouch, his body weighing me down to keep me from running again. And I stared with bulging eyes, struggling to breathe through my bleeding nose, as Lucy bore down upon us.
"It's okay," Robert Jr. said,
but he wasn't talking to me. I could feel him shaking against my back.
"It's okay, Lucy. You're okay."
She came closer, the precise movements of her vast spider body in stark contrast against the limp, feeble movements of her human torso. Her face seemed alert, even with the 6 bleary eyes that looked infected in their unnaturalness. But her arms hung listlessly at her sides, her posture hunched. Venom, blood, saliva flowed slowly down her chin, all that remained of the squirrel spider. I could hear her breathing, see her pale throat throb as she swallowed.
"That's a good girl, baby,"
said Robert Jr., his voice low and soothing despite his voice trembling.
"Daddy didn't know you lived here, Lucy. We didn't know we'd see you here. You did such a good job here, all by yourself, didn't you, baby? Daddy's proud of you."
He was slowly inching us back as he spoke nonsense to the thing in front of us. The spider shifted minutely, almost moving after us, but not quite. Lucy's dark, wet mouth drooped open. In a voice that sounded like wind in dead leaves, she hissed, "Daddy." Robert Jr. laughed, wild and terrified in my ear, pulling me another step back, the palm of his hand still crushing my lips against my chattering teeth. "That's right, baby. Daddy's here. Daddy didn't think he'd see you all grown up in these woods, huh, baby? Good girl, Lucy." She didn't move after us as we backed away, although her eyes followed us with laser focus. Again, her voice hoarse and vacant. "Lucy." "That's right, baby. Daddy's gonna take your friend back home, okay? You remember Aaron." I groaned behind his hand, sick with fear, as all 8 of Lucy's eyes shifted on to me. She didn't say my name. Wildly in the back of my head, I wondered if she recognized any of the things Robert Jr. was saying to her. Certainly that she was all spider like this, and the 2 words she'd said were empty repetitions preceding her final attack. But still, she stood motionless, watching our retreat. "Daddy's gonna take Aaron home. Is that okay, baby?" Robert Jr. said. "Will you let me do that, Lucy?" She was silent for a long moment. Then, "Okay,"
Good girl, Lucy. We're going away. Good girl.
Another long stretch of silence as we moved steadily away from her. She still didn't follow, merely watching us. Her voice, unprompted this time, shook me to my core when it next creaked through the night. "Come see me." The noise Robert Jr. made was something of a strangled sob and a laugh. "Yeah, baby, I'll come to see you. I'll come see you again. Just let me take Aaron home and Daddy will come see you again, baby girl." "Okay." We were several meters away from her by now. I was sure we were nearing the bend and the fork in the trail we had taken. Slowly, Robert Jr. lowered his hand from my mouth, and I gulped a deep, shaking breath. "I can't get us out of here backwards," he said, "but I need you watching behind us. You hang on to me, and I will walk you out. You tell me if she follows. Can you do that, son?" Wide-eyed and unable to look away from Lucy's figure down the trail, I nodded. Yes, sir." "Okay, careful now." His hand encircled my wrist tightly, and with a firm tug, he took us around the bend. I struggled to walk in reverse, my legs like rubber, and my pulse roaring in my ears. Lucy didn't follow us once I lost sight of her. Robert Jr. navigated us back through the forest, avoiding all webs this time around. I don't know how long it took to get out of the woods. For all I knew, it took days. But eventually we broke through the tree line, and the unobstructed moonlight was blinding. I felt separate from my own body as I brushed harmless jumping spiders and orb weavers from my hat and jacket. Distantly, I heard Robert Jr. chuckling weakly. I turned around to look at Lockhart Wood. Almost casually, I leaned over and threw up on the grass. A few yards away, Robert Jr. did just the same, coughing and laughing harder when he was done. "Fuck," he gasped, hands on his face. I watched him stagger and fall heavily onto his ass, giggling maniacally. Dazed, I went over to him and sat beside him on the grass, staring at the forest. I spat remnants of bile on the ground between my knees. I fumbled with my headlamp, turned it off, and threw my hat aside. I peered at Robert Jr.'s tear-streaked, laughing face, vaguely concerned. I can't tell if that's good laughter or bad laughter. "Christ," he gasped, possibly hyperventilating. "You and me both. Fuck." He pressed 2 fingers to his neck, checking his own pulse. "What are you gonna do now?" I asked weakly. "Shit, Scooter, I don't know. Probably visit my daughter every now and then. Damn." He scrubbed his hands over his face, groaning deeply. My head swam. I flopped backwards, staring at the night sky. The stars looked like little white spiderlings. I thought suddenly of my mother back at the house, and for whatever reason, all I could think to say was, "Hey, so I was thinking you should give my mom a call sometime. She's not seeing anyone." I don't remember getting home that night. I don't remember getting settled on campus the next day. But I think I'm going to change my major to biology. I'd like to see Lucy again. And I think maybe a study in arachnology might be a good place to start. The end. let me get a quick hydrate and we can catch up on chat. I was reluctant to I was reluctant to stop in the middle to catch up because we were getting, to the climax and towards the end. Alright, and we gotta redeem Brayden's head pats too. So, what did you all think of the story? I'm definitely glad I reread it today. When I originally heard it narrated, I didn't really know what I was expecting. Just, spider horror sounded pretty interesting, so I went with it. Alright, so head pats for chat from Brayden. Let's see. Where were we in chat? You're the best, Astral. So lovely. Aw, thank you, Brayden. You guys are pretty alright yourselves. I'm just kidding. You're quite wonderful. I have become quite fond of all of you. You liked this story? I'm glad it felt pretty unique. It really did. That's one of the things I like about it. Once you read a bunch of creepypastas and stuff, a lot of things, even if they are good, they start to feel kind of, similar. And you just want something a little different. That's why I really like the cryptid stories, because you can get some generic ones, but I feel like you can also get a lot more variety. It just takes a bit of searching. Derpy, the jumping spiders went for the hat. You were right. Nate, you thought it was kind of cool? I'm glad. Lurid, great storytelling. Thank you, Lurid. I'm glad you decided to stick around, too. It's good to see you hanging out. These Sunday streams, they usually tend to be a little more mellow. And we just kind of read our stories, and sometimes we do some visual ASMR and just chatting afterwards. But we have about 35 minutes left in stream, so I think we could find another story if we want to. Since we're already on NoSleep, let's see what other stuff we might have. This one does. Oh, okay. It's kind of long, but we could read this one called Polaroid Man. It's got quite a few updates and it's pretty recent. I think we'll do that. I'm a little intrigued. Ooh. One called The Paperboy. That one's got a lot less upvotes. Yeah, let's go ahead and read Polaroid Man. I hope it's good. I've never read it before, so I can't vouch for it. It was uploaded 7 days ago, so we'll see. All right. Y'all get back in your positions, and we will start the story. Boop. All right. So this one is Polaroid Man by A.P. Clariot, and this one is also on our NoSleep. I didn't understand the object Freddy shook in my face or why he was so excited. Halloween night in '87 wasn't as illuminated as today. "It's a picture," he yelled and spat into my face. Look! I put my pillowcase down and held his wrist gently to see the fuss. A Polaroid picture with Freddy in his sad pirate costume. When I looked more closely, however, I saw the singed boy beneath. Polaroid Freddy looked burnt to a crisp. His skin gone, his eyes melted away. Freddy snapped the picture from my fingers. Isn't it cool? He studied it again. Like a magic trick. Best Halloween ever. Right? It's cool, right? He continued to bully me for validation, as 10-year-old boys do, until I relented. It's cool, Freddy. Where'd you get it? You know Mr. Malcolm's house? Super green long guy? Tells dirty jokes to us at the bus stop? The weirdo pervert? That guy? Freddy nodded enthusiastically, missing my intended sarcasm. Everyone usually avoided Mr. Malcolm's house on Halloween, and every other day. The man constantly invited kids inside for, quote, candy and conversation. I don't know if anyone accepted that offer. I hope not. Yeah, Freddy confirmed. But there's a young guy on the porch, probably his nephew or something. He's got on a mega spooky demon mask, and he's got a camera, and he takes your picture, and it prints out all freaky like mine, and... Whoa, Freddy, I said. He was getting overexcited. Freddy had something wrong with him, a weak heart maybe, though I can't recall exactly what we were told other than he could die should he get too worked up. Our teachers told us to look out for Freddy, so I did. It's great. Calm down. I started breathing with him and held his hand. He smiled. Thanks, man. Want to see? I smiled back. Yep. The photo had creeped me out, but also fascinated me. I didn't want to be the only kid who missed out on something cool. Judging by the line extending down the walkway, bending at a right angle onto the sidewalk, it seemed I might. There had to be 50 kids waiting for their photo. Polaroid pictures aren't fast. They don't present an image until at least 10 minutes have gone by. The guy on the porch wore a thin mask with horns that really seemed to grow from his forehead. A mouthpiece displayed jagged teeth. He carefully placed the undeveloped photo on a shoe rack at his side. You don't shake Polaroid pictures, you wait. And so we waited. He could have simply given the white rectangles to the eager kids before the image showed, but he didn't. Instead, after taking a trick-or-treater's photo, he sat cross-legged on Mr. Malcolm's concrete slab of a porch and stared at the child. Some kids tried to talk with him. He didn't answer. Others waited in silence, bearing the stranger's gaze with admirable defiance. One little boy began to cry. His parents ushered him away before he could collect his photo. I remember thinking how fortunate I was that my parents let me trick-or-treat on my own. I would get my photo. I would endure the awkwardness of the adult gaze. Time ticked on. It was late. Some kids gave up and left the line, to my delight. Freddy yawned and said he had to go. I thanked him for telling me about the Polaroid man. I probably wouldn't have come down Ferry Street otherwise. Mr. Malcolm creeped me out too much. Luckily, a few other school friends were revealed by the departures. May DeFranco and Vicky Rand. They'd already gotten their photos, but hung around because May's little sister wanted one too. Can I see? I asked, pointing at the photos. They were grotesque, and I could hardly bear it. May's body appeared popped open, entrails spilling from her guts and onto splintered remnants of bone and muscle. Only the pink princess dress she wore as her costume identified her as the corpse in the photo. Vicky's was far worse. Her dead body had been tied at the wrists and ankles. Her pale face appeared stunned at the mutilation of her body. The top half had been pulled apart from the bottom, and there were more tortured dead around her in a dark field. "Cool, right?" said Vicky. "It's like Freddy Krueger or something." "You've never seen Freddy Krueger," May said. I hadn't seen Nightmare on Elm Street either. Never have. At the time, I assumed the contents of the photo were typical horror movie stuff. I wasn't ready for it, but I wouldn't let my discomfort show. After May's sister got her photo, more kids thought better of risking their worried parents' wrath. They left, and after one more boy got his photo, my turn came at 11:42 p.m. My parents were probably pissed off by 8, so I figured, wrongly, I wouldn't be in more trouble for continuing to stay out way past the time I should have been home. Though, I did have second thoughts, especially when I realized no other kids remained. I would be last, and I was alone with the devil-masked man.
"Don't smile,"
he growled. I adjusted my face quickly to obey. He snapped the picture and sat on the stoop. We waited. The last leaves on the trees hissed a warning in the wind. Their dead brethren skittered away down Ferry Street. I could hardly breathe as he stared. There were no visible eyes in the sockets of his mask, only oily voids. An unfortunate trick of the dim porch bulb. It had to be. The feeling in my stomach called for a quick escape. "I think I need to go," I told him. His hand gripped my wrist hard. I squirmed. "It's okay, I can pick it up tomorrow." He did not let go. His face, that mask, got close to mine. He was perfectly quiet, no inhalation or exhale, as he forced me to stay put. "Please," I begged. "I want to go home." In the half-inch space between our noses, he slid the developing Polaroid. This close, I could barely see anything. Then the devil's mask appeared in the photo. Then I, or what would become of me, materialized. The Polaroid featured us together, his hands around my neck, my face empty of life. I yelped and pulled away. He let go, and I fell onto the walkway. He stood up and tossed the photo with precision. It landed beside me on the grass. Further details of the horror were revealed. A swath of blood matted my hair and soaked the front of my costume like a gory bib. The man in the devil mask had done more than strangle me, according to the image. I backed away, a reverse crab walk of cumbersome doom. He hadn't moved because he could catch me any time he liked. His first step knocked his camera off the stoop. It clattered, and a piece shot away from the impact. He didn't seem to care. Please, I pleaded with him. I don't remember the specifics of how I got up and ran down the middle of Ferry Street. I only recall the chase was brief because I made a mistake and got cornered in the variety store parking lot. The store, Brothers Variety, had been closed for hours. There'd be no help there. The streets were empty. Most people were asleep. How I knew this or thought about it in such a terrible moment came down to dumb luck. I backed into a pile of leaves, bunched up with fake spider webs that had blown off someone's house. Stuck, I raised my arms defensively and caught the time on my digital watch. The wrong side of midnight by 12 minutes. His fingers caressed the side of my neck. I closed my eyes and started trembling uncontrollably. Pain would be next. Great pain, the photo promised, and death. No, I tried to shout, but it came out like a squeak. Halloween is over. It's over. It's done. You can't. I don't know what I was saying or why. But the fingers retreated, and he took noiseless steps backwards over the cracked tarmac. When he reached the sidewalk, he spoke.
See you next year, then.
As if it had been a prank all along, he walked away, casually. It took far too long for me to go the opposite way. Eventually, I managed a slow jog, working through the blocks to home, where my mom waited in the front window, worried and angry. Punishment was left up to my father. When he returned from searching for me, I told him about the photo and the guy in the mask. He received the information passively before grabbing his baseball bat and calling his brothers. Together, they went to Mr. Malcolm's and discovered the busted door in the backyard. The old man had died in his chair, completely naked. My dad told me this last detail some years later. Police were called, but nothing came of whatever investigation might have followed. My parents had, and have, no faith in the Bridal Veil Lake PD. Hence the reason he called his brothers and picked up his bat that night. Evidence of the devil-masked man existed, of course. Many kids had their photo taken. No police or adults asked about it, as far as I know. Mine had been left on Mr. Malcolm's lawn, but Freddie, May, and Vicky said they still had theirs at home. Freddie's, however, likely burned up in the fire the following Christmas. His dad made the mistake of using the space heater in the garage. All of them, including Freddie, were dead the day before Christmas Eve. I refused to go trick-or-treating the next year, and every one after that. My parents understood and didn't pressure me. Within a few years, I aged out of the tradition, but still wouldn't risk going out for a walk on Halloween night.
See you next year, then.
And if not the next, or the next, or the next, he waits. I know because every photo has turned out to be true. Vicky simply disappeared before her 19th birthday, and while her body was never recovered, a man suspected of torturing and killing half a dozen young women in Bridal Veil Lake and Derry across the border was arrested as the likely culprit. May committed suicide off the old casino hotel last July. My son is 5 now. He wants me to take him trick-or-treating in a few weeks. Of course he does. He doesn't know. Neither does my wife. That man is waiting for me. And that's it. That's the end. Well, it wasn't the most original. Like, I feel like there have been plenty of Polaroids telling the future stories, but I liked it. It was short and sweet. It felt like a solid creepypasta to me. Now let me get a quick hydrate, and I will catch up on chat. Sorry if anyone was waiting on a response. I hope nothing was urgent. But what did you guys think of that one? Oh, hi Shadow, it's good to see you. How are you doing? Having a good Sunday? Alright, we've got... Wow, that one really didn't take very much time at all. So we've got about 20 minutes. Calming head pats. Yeah, I gotta calm you all down after this story. Don't be going around getting any Polaroid pictures, okay? At least not from creepy demon men. Alright, let's see. I'm kind of curious about this No Exit 202. Let's take a look at that. Doesn't look like a very long one. Yeah, let's go with this one. I think we can get through this one in 20 minutes probably. So we're gonna get 3 stories today instead of just the one I had scheduled. I wasn't sure how long the Forest of 1,000 Legs would take, because I remembered it being a little on the longer side, but yeah, I wasn't sure how long it would take me to read it. So let's shove you back over there so you can listen to the story. Boop. Alright, this one is No Exit 202 by Glittering Slip 2879. I used to be a trucker. Was for about 10 years, I think. I don't do driving anymore. Try to limit as much as I can, even outside of work. Now, I don't have a fear of driving. I have a fear of destinations. Every time you get into a car, you have a destination in mind, a place you want to go. Even if you don't have a specific place in mind, that place is just a way. The saying, "It's about the journey, not the destination," bullshit. When is the car ride to your vacation spot the fun part of the trip? Never. Usually just awkwardly quiet. That's beside the point, though. What I hate the most, though, is driving through the Midwest. I swear, every single one of those towns is just the same. Identical, cookie cutter, gas station, few neighborhoods, corner store. Once you've seen one, you've seen them all. It's midsummer. I've been going through miles and miles of just cornfields, as far as the eye can see. Flat fields of corn, oddly beautiful during the day, like a sea of green spreading out there. During the night, though, you can only imagine what might be hiding in those corn stalks. As a trucker, you have to remain vigilant. If something, or for some godforsaken reason, someone were to dart out, I wouldn't be able to stop. Just don't like the fields at night. I'm on Route 23, somewhere between Iowa and Nebraska, and it's getting dark. When it gets dark in the Midwest, all you have is the lights on your truck, and the light of the moon. The lights on your truck and the light of the moon. Here's something you might not know. The majority of large truck crashes happen in rural areas. I personally have had some of my closest calls in rural areas. Just nothing for miles, not even a turn in the road, and your brain basically just starts to turn off. Go on autopilot. Never a good thing when your mind starts to wander while operating a 30-ton killing machine. So when I start to get tired, I start to look for a place to rest for the night. That's what I was doing when I stumbled across exit 202. I had driven down this road a good few times before, but this exit was new to me. I just figured there might have been some new developments since the last time I had been down the route. I was curious, tired, and hungry, so I took the exit and headed down the road. Corn. That's all I can say. Corn. This road was narrow, a struggle to stay in my lane as the highway ended and gave way to a mostly neglected road, unkempt and rough. Oops. Looking into the distance, there was nothing. No lights, no buildings, not even another car on the road. Just corn. So much corn. That's when I saw it. A small clearing on the side of the road, with a large neon pink sign beckoning me closer. Mabel's Diner. Getting closer, it looked like it was on its last legs. The light was dim, flickering in the night. From what I could see from the safety of my truck, the diner looked rusted and near decrepit. Although an open sign and lights within were with nowhere else to go, I hopped out of my truck and entered the building. As I entered, a weak-sounding bell heralded my entry. The place was nearly empty, with a few patrons who barely even looked up from their plates as I walked in. The waitress behind the counter looked at me with a dull gaze. This poor woman seemed exhausted, as if she had been working here as long as the building had been. Her name tag was only more proof of this, reading Mabel. I just asked for the house special, and she served me some pretty basic eggs and sausage with a tired smile. My nose began to sniffle. I've always had allergies. Something about this place, though, was especially bad. Like stuck in a hayloft bad. My nose just would not stop leaking. My eyes were starting to water, and I was severely starting to regret not taking my allergy medication earlier. Sorry, quick hydrate. That is much better. Might have to start using NoSleep for my story narrations more often. Where was I? Ah, here we are. As I ate, my mind began to wander. The food was just forgettable. It was sustaining, but utterly unfulfilling. Makes sense why the place looked so worn down. Who would come all the way out for this? That's when a big feeling of unease began to creep into my chest. The place was silent, not a single noise. There's always noise no matter where you go. Scraping of utensils on plates, quiet murmuring, hell, even the humming of the lights, or even a fly buzzing past. The place was just utterly silent. I quickly paid for my meal, throwing down a wad of cash as I left, leaving all of the disheveled patrons behind me. I walked out into that pitch-black parking lot and came to a terrible realization. The parking lot was empty. Not a single vehicle was out there, including my truck. It was gone. I was stranded in this horrible place. I pulled out my phone, tried calling my boss, and of course, because I'm in the middle of nowhere, no signal and no escape. I heard a faint jingle of a bell opening and a cold voice cutting through my chest. Mabel said to me, "Oh dear, your truck gone? Come on in, stay a while. We'll call someone for you." She stood so still in the doorframe, a silhouette dimly lit by the dingy light behind her. When people stand still, they still move. Their chest rises and falls as they breathe. Maybe a drum of their fingers against their leg, a small shifting back and forth in their stance. But she was deathly still, like a mannequin. It wasn't just that, but her voice just sounded wrong. Flat, hollow. I was filled with a sense of dread. Like, if I followed along with her, I would not be leaving that diner. So I slowly turned around and began walking back the way I came. Maybe if I made it back to the highway, I could hail someone down and get to a place to fill in my boss and figure out what to do about my truck. And I walked, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked. The corn all around me, so utterly alone. It was dark, no lights, no nothing, just the rustling of corn and the moonlight to guide me. Then I heard that piercing voice again. "Stay a while. We'll keep you company." I spun around, and there she stood, standing in the road, deathly still. "Stay a while." The corn to my sides shifted as some of the patrons of the bar slowly made their way out. Now looking closer, I came to a terrible realization. The reason they were silent, the reason they didn't even seem to breathe. In the glimmer of the moonlight as they approached me, I saw what they really were. Their skin was stretched tight, more of a mask than their own flesh. Peeking from underneath the seams of their skin, around their neck was straw, poking out from between the stitches that held them together. They grabbed me, holding on to me with a strength I had never felt before. Mabel just got closer and closer to me. I thrashed against their grip, screaming and crying against the men who were holding me back. Mabel only got closer, her cold, dead eyes staring into me. "Stay a while." Her hand stretched out, touching my neck, an icy stillness spreading through my body. Adrenaline is one hell of a drug. I kicked her right in the stomach with all of my strength. It was like kicking a brick wall. She stumbled back, looking more confused than shocked. The men's grip on me loosened just barely enough, and I broke loose, running as fast as I could for the highway. My heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through, letting me push past the ache and pain of my joints and my ragged gasping for air. I kept running and running, running past the burn of my lungs and the tightness of my throat. After what felt like an eternity, I finally saw headlights in the distance. I waved my arms, screaming until my voice gave out, and he stopped for me. I explained my situation, that someone was trying to kill me. He let me into his car and started driving to a nearby town. Toward the diner, I began to panic, to tell him to turn around to the highway, that the people who attacked me were this way. He looked at me confused. That the highway was nowhere nearby, that there was no Mabel's Diner, that there was no exit 202. The feeling of pure fear flooded me. We drove for a while, and as I saw the lights of the town in the distance, the man was right. There were no signs of my assailants. There were no signs of the diner, no signs of my truck. The cornfields ended, and I was greeted by a small Midwestern town. The man dropped me off at the local police station, and I gave them my statement. I called my boss about the situation, and they sent someone in the area to swing by and bring me back home. When I got back, I tried reporting my truck and all its details. They gave me the most confusing revelation yet. My truck was still in the garage. Only when I went to check on it, it wasn't the same truck. Different license plate. The color was a different shade, and the keys in my pocket did not work on this one. I brought it up with my supervisor, and he looked just as confused as I did. The keys didn't go to any truck in the garage or any on the record ever. I still have the keys now, not sure what to do with them. I quit pretty soon after. I'm not a big fan of leaving town, much less the state. Especially those cornfields.
God, I hate those cornfields.
I'm just trying to separate from it all. I'm worried that this might be a curse for me, 'cause on the highway to get my groceries today, I saw an exit 143. And despite all the information I look for it online, there is no exit 143. The end. I liked that one. I have a fondness for road trip stories, I guess you could say. Let me get a quick hydrate. Like being alone on a long stretch of road when something creepy happens, it just makes it all the better. But yeah, it wasn't anything too showy or flashy or exceptional, I suppose. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. What did you guys think? I think we're just about at our time, so we're gonna call it here for the stories. We'll just do a little bit of a hangout, say our goodbyes, do a little bit of face tracing and head pats to wind you down for perhaps bedtime or perhaps just enjoying a relaxing rest of your Sunday. Creepypasta idea, road trip, but you piss off a moose. Aw, derpy. Of course you can have head pats and hugs. Oh my gosh, derpy. Going all out as you do at the end. Alright, let's do another hydrate and a stretch real quick, and then I'll continue with your head pats. I wish there was a story narration category on Twitch, 'cause I usually just stream this in the VR chat category. I've done a few where it was in the ASMR category, but I feel like either way, I'm kind of misleading people. Oh, that stretch felt good on my back. You guys make sure you get up and stretch too if you need to. We have been just sitting here telling stories for a couple hours now. Gotta make sure you keep that blood flowing. And if you're like me, you're gonna have a bunch of cracking joints too. But that's just 'cause I'm getting old. I mean, gosh, I'm so bad at balancing. I mean, by internet standards, I'm rather ancient. Oh my gosh. Well, that leg stretch did feel really good, even if I didn't balance very well. Oh, you got a little hermit crab, buddy. I missed it. Alright, let's bring you over here. Yeah, we might go a little longer with this. I've really been missing you guys. Like, I know I've still been streaming, but it hasn't been VR chat games. We have our little intros most of the time, where I get a little bit of a fix for, interacting with you. But, it's not the same interacting with you guys through another game. I like having my body and being able to talk into the camera to you guys. Makes it feel a little more personal. Nate, you've had people call ambulances for you thinking you broke something, but it was just a loud crack. Oh my gosh, really? That's crazy. I can't imagine how loud of a crack it has to be for someone to just call an ambulance. I'm really fond of this music we found. It really just fits the atmosphere. Think you're old? Nah, you got the... you are spiritually old, Nate. You have lived like a dozen lifetimes. How close do you guys like my head to be when I do this sort of stuff? I feel like I tend to get like pretty close a lot of times, but some people it seems like they do it really far away. I just like being up close with you guys. Oh, I forgot to mention again. I mentioned it last time, but if any of you have been considering subbing to anyone or gifting some subs, now is a good time to do it, cause when you purchase a new sub, you get 3 months of Discord Nitro with it. So if that's something that interests you, you know, go find your favorite streamer or just, you know, gift some random subs. It might be cheaper than actually it probably is. I don't know how much Discord Nitro costs, because I've never purchased it myself. I've had it gifted once, but I think purchasing a sub for someone would be cheaper than buying 3 months of Discord Nitro separately. Of course, depending on which tier, I suppose you could go for like one of the higher tiers and then it might be more expensive. Nitro, oh wow, Nitro is $10 a month? That's so expensive. Yeah, so if you guys want Discord Nitro, definitely take advantage of that, because that is a pretty good deal. And I don't think it has to be like a crazy amount of subs. I think it's just a single sub. Nate, you're like one of those heroes who uses their powers, but every time they use it, they get younger, which is weird. It's a theme. Yeah, I don't know if I've really encountered many of those type of stories, but that does sound interesting. Even at the lower tier, $3, a sub is still cheaper for 3 months. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty good deal. I was really surprised when I saw that they were doing that. For me, the main thing that appeals to me with Discord Nitro is you get that like a much bigger upload file size that you can do. 90% off deal. Dang, it's a good deal. But yeah, when I had a Discord Nitro gifted to me the one time, yeah, it was mostly that larger upload size that I liked. The other customization stuff was a lot of fun too, but definitely not something I'm gonna pay $10 a month for. I mean, maybe some other people get a lot more use out of it, like, I don't know, Do any of you have Discord Nitro? If you do, what is it that makes it worth it to you? Because I'm kind of curious. Oh, maybe the server boosting too. I suppose that can be appealing to some people. We're getting kind of close to the end of October. Well, I guess, yeah, we got like 11 days left in October. Kind of getting into that home stretch. How have you guys been liking the Cursed 13, by the way? Have you enjoyed seeing all the horror games, or are you ready for going back to like our normal streaming agenda where it's mostly VR chat with, you know, Friday Night Frights? There's definitely been a few games that we've played for the Cursed 13 that I definitely want to continue for Friday Night Frights. Like Seventh Guest, I definitely want to continue. Layers of Fear for sure. I do want to play more what was it? Untitled Ghost Game. I want to start doing some community game nights with you all. I need to find the time for it. I need to get it scheduled. Well, I think it's probably time for us to go. I was kind of just running late. I was enjoying just vibing with you guys. It's nice to take a little bit of time to just breathe and do nothing for a while. Astral, are you gonna play VRC after? I'm hoping to get on VRC a little later. Again, yeah. I need to go eat dinner first, though. I'll probably just throw a pizza in the oven or something. Something easy. Do a salad with it. Ooh, salad sounds so good. I don't think I have any croutons, though. I love croutons. The last bag we got, I kind of just devoured the majority of them, just snacking on them. They're so delicious. But yeah, I don't tend to do anything fancy with my salads, though. Usually just ranch or Caesar dressing. Maybe I'll throw some tomatoes in there on rare occasion. Or if I want to make it a standalone meal, I like to, if I'm feeling lazy and just want like a easy standalone salad meal, I'll take some of those microwavable chicken patties and like cut them into strips and just add it to the salad, and it's really good. Obviously, it's not fancy or anything like that, but I enjoy it, and if you're feeling lazy, you could do a lot worse. But yeah, let's go ahead and wrap things up. I don't think we're gonna rate. Well, let's see, who do we have on? Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anyone I really want to raid right now, so we'll just go ahead and end it. I hope you all enjoyed the stories. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, or if you happen to be overseas, or if you're watching this in the future, I hope you have a wonderful whatever time it is for you. I really enjoy hanging out with all of you, and having these cozy Sunday sessions is a nice way to kind of lead into a new week. So, goodbye hugs. Take care of yourselves and each other. Stay hydrated. Eat some good food. And I will see you all tomorrow for... Oh, what are we playing? I already forgot. I don't know. I need to check my own Discord announcement to see what I'm streaming. Oh, we're doing Spooky tomorrow. Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion. I know I said we'd do SCP Lab Rat this week, but I haven't tested out my other controller yet, so I didn't want to commit to it. But yeah, join up tomorrow if you want to watch us play some Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion. I'm not sure if we'll just do an endless run or if we'll do one of the story modes. Maybe both. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. And I will be doing it in VR. Hopefully it's not any jankier than it was when I last played it. 'Cause then it was a little janky, but it was playable, and I enjoy it. So we'll see. We'll see. I love you all. Goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow. All that stuff I said before.